In a Fox Entertainment segment, Laura Ingraham had a conversation with Trump about who is going to be the candidate for VP. In their conversation, he acknowledged that there are 6 that are potential candidates. Let's look at the list. This one doesn't come necessarily as a big surprise because it's the going rate in the Republican Party. First, you attack Trump by any means necessary, and as soon as you figured out that you don't have a leg to stand on, you start kissing ass. In this case, of course, Ronnie DeSantis. Coming fresh from South Dakota, it's Kristi Noem, a person who once had the idea that maybe we should add Trump to Mount Rushmore. And then right below, the traitor of the Democratic Party, Tulsi Gabbard. Another option that should surprise exactly no one is Vivek Ramaswamy, who throughout the entire campaign trail sounded like an Indian version of Trump. And then right below him, Byron Donalds. And finishing off the list of 6 is Tim Scott. Now, which one of those 6 potentials will actually be Trump's running mate? I don't know. Maybe you have an idea. Put it in the comment section. The only thing that really matters in the end is none of those caricatures can possibly become the acting VP, just the same as Trump cannot possibly become the acting president, ascending back to the throne in the White Castle, because it would absolutely wreck the United States. But still, in the interest of a fun little exercise, well, fun in quotations, of course, put in the comment section, who do you think out of those 6 will be Trump's running mate? Lastly, this was posted in the New York Post, and I take any media outlet with a grain of salt these days. Nonetheless, I wanted you to know where the entire set of 6 dysfunctional, decrepit individuals actually originated from. What could possibly go wrong? It's already a pretty disturbing trend in the United States where one bank buys up another, consolidating businesses under a larger umbrella, reducing the competitive marketplace to the benefit of the shareholders and the disadvantage of the regular consumers. But now Capital One is proposing to buy Discover for a $35 billion stock transaction, combining those 2 behemoths in the credit card company space. This would mean that in a country that is already plagued with record high credit card debt, that those 2 major players are coming together and they can do whatever they want to their rates, which means those who owe money either on Discover or Capital One may very well never see the end of it and only discharge their debt through bankruptcy. I hope that regulators in a country where many scream that we have too big of government, we need government intervention so that things like such mergers do not exist, because each individual organization in and of itself is already too big to exist. Combining them would create a behemoth, again, be only for the advantage of the shareholder and the absolute detriment of most Americans. So, your political representative that has a say in this decision, I think should absolutely hear from you that this cannot be allowed. I agree. This merger between Capital One and Discover is inherently not good because it is only in the interest of the shareholder and not in the interest of the consumer. Will regulators have a word in this and hopefully prevent this merger? Well, of course. We can only hope that they will do that and decide in favor of the consumer, because the bet that Discover and Capital One are hedging is hinging on Americans to continue to spend money. And when we consider our economic circumstances, which are certainly not improving, in fact, wages are stagnating, prices are increasing, the majority of Americans don't have any money to begin with, let alone any savings, we are going to be in a world of hurt, particularly when 2 of the primary credit card outfits, who are credit card lenders in the first place before they are actually banks, were to merge and then have almost free rein as far as the interest rate is concerned. So yes, we absolutely need to hope that our regulators come to the rescue of the general public and the consumers. I am usually not in the habit to call out small business, but there are limits. Watch this and then we'll talk.
Mr. President, I'm the one that won your signed sneakers here at SneakerCon in Philadelphia. Was very, extremely happy to see you, see your face, see you speak to the crowd. Hopefully, we're going to have a winning, we're going to have a winning celebration come this November. I will be wearing these one-of-one Donald Trump signed sneakers, but the only president I recognize the last 4 years, Donald J. Trump.
And how much did you pay for those?
$9,000 the bidding end of that.
You bid $9,000?
Well, it was an auction, so it kept going and going and going. I wasn't going to stop until I won them. So
really, Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
I'm going to pass this on to President Trump. And what is your name?
I'm Roman Sharf,
And where are you from?
Philadelphia.
Great. Congratulations. Thank you.
This was Roman Sharf, the Russian-born CEO and founder of Luxury Bazaar, a gray market or second-hand dealer of high-end timepieces, watches, and jewelry. He has a successful YouTube channel and quite a successful business, and his son just recently opened a sneaker store in Miami, Florida. Now, based on this video, Sharf is not shy to admit his undying support of Trump and also not shy to drop a pretty substantial amount of money on practically worthless sneakers. Where does the money come from? Well, of course, from the customers at Luxury Bazaar. With that, we have arrived at a point in time where it is absolutely clear that we have to vote with our dollars. So if you are in the market for a timepiece or jewelry and you are not in Camp Trump, then Luxury Bazaar is not the place to shop at. There have to be consequences for the support of that magnitude, particularly when you are a known face with a substantial social media presence such as Sharf. And the consequence is that buyers, as far as I'm concerned, should look into different avenues of purchasing. Luxury Bazaar, with that type of allegiance, is certainly not it. I just got off the phone, and I think I talked to an AI. One of the pieces of equipment that we're using, some of the parts wore out and others broke. So I just called the manufacturer and asked whether I can order certain parts. And I talked to a service tech first, and that was the wrong individual. So he referred me, or transferred me rather, to the right person. And the person that answered was very efficient, very effective, very absent of empathy. Because when something breaks in the customer service sector, when you call a manufacturer, it's usually something along the lines of, oh, I'm sorry to hear that, let me help you find the parts and fix it. It was the absence of the sorry to hear that. It was right to the point of, oh yeah, let's look up the part numbers and get that ordered for you. So that was efficient and right on the money, but it just lacked a little bit of humanity, just a little bit of human connection. And I felt off while having that conversation. It's like something's not right here. The response times were just a little too delayed. They were efficient and effective, but just a little too much pause. And I was just, chalking it off to a bad connection. But now thinking back, it's like, wait a minute, I think I talked to an AI. The tonality, the pronunciation, the pace, everything was the same. There was no intonation that would suggest the song and dance of a human being. And that was an upsell opportunity because the parts that broke and the ones that I ordered the replacements for have adjacent parts. And the question of that, well, let's call it a person for now, was, well, would you have need of XYZ replacement as well? Screws and plastic screw heads and all kinds of stuff. And I just said, no, I checked those and we're good. Oh, okay, thank you so much. I just thought I'd ask. But usually in a sales environment, you would expect an upsell, but that didn't happen. It was just accepting my answer and moving along. The entire transaction, the entire conversation took, well, not much longer than our conversation here right now. It was effective. It was professional. It was business to business. And I don't know how to feel about this because it felt completely just absent of human connection. So I tried to crack a couple of jokes here and there just to test, to see what the responses would be. And not that my jokes are any good by any stretch of the imagination, but usually you get at least some form of fake laughter because customer service, nothing, deadpan. So maybe my joke sucked, which of course is always the option, or it was an AI. Now my thought, to be honest with you, is it was an AI. And I'm not sure how to feel about this. But when I spin the ball forward, this AI clearly was in its infancy, because we are in the infancy of voice cloning and business to business or business to customers or B2B or B2C interactions. And that is going to become the norm, and those things are going to get more and more efficient and so indistinguishable that we actually don't really know whether we are talking to an AI or to an actual human. Which means that a number of customer service jobs, frontline jobs, representation jobs of the organization, because the customer facing individual is a representation of the organization, will be replaced by artificial intelligence. That bears some strong consideration, because the employment market is going to change at such a fast pace that I don't think any one of us is truly understanding as to how quickly this is going to hit us over the head. And we have no, particularly in the United States, social safety net to sustain the impact. This is going to be bad, people. And I'm usually a solutions guy, but I don't have one for this, because the organization is in a pickle. The organization has to streamline, particularly publicly traded organizations. They have to maximize profitability because of fiduciary responsibility. So in other words, if they can make a job redundant and replace that job with a function that doesn't need PTO, sick time, doesn't have a bad day at work, they will do that. And if they can replace something that is as customer facing as a customer service sales type position where you order parts and even get parts recommended, yeah, we're gonna be in a world of hurt in 2024, 2025. And I'm staying away from politics on purpose, but let me just throw this at you if you're still here listening to my drivel here. If you look at what OpenAI with Sora is capable of doing regarding text to video construction, and then you have voice cloning over top of it, and maybe some environmental noises that are being funneled into it as well, misinformation and disinformation is going to have a heyday. Because in a society where we barely read headlines, they are going to be able to show us a clip worth 60 seconds, and we're going to buy it hook, line, and sinker. Yeah, happy Monday. Let's talk about money, particularly TikTok money, and how much they paid me in the last 28 days through the Creativity Beta program. I'm going to show you that screenshot in the end. First, some data points. I recorded about 75, 80 videos, but I was really only confident enough in 53 of them to release them here on TikTok. Now, what do the metrics say? For one, in the last 28 days, video views have substantially dropped, as have the profile views, the likes, and the comments. Now, interestingly enough, the view to like ratio on the videos is still the same, except TikTok has chosen not to serve you what I'm putting out. As far as followers are concerned, in the last 28 days, we've grown to a total of 64,201, which is a net increase of 462. That to me feels very strange, because when I look at my analytics on a daily basis, it feels like it's a net zero. 2 people in, 3 out, 1 in, 5 out, and so forth. So evidently we've grown by 462. In the meantime, people who sling conspiracy theories are north of 2 million followers. Makes no sense to me, but I'm not bitching and whining and complaining about this. It just shows what sells and clearly what doesn't sell. Let's look at the follower insights, the demographic breakdown. 39% male, 61% female, and most of you are online at 8 p.m. in the evening. And the age demographics are separated, as always, between 35 and 55 plus, with a pretty equal distribution. The United States is the top ranking country with 95%. Then we have our friends up north in Canada, hello, and the United Kingdom, Nigeria, and Australia. And the cities are led by Chicago, Los Angeles, Houston, Dallas, and Portland, Oregon. Now, the question is, how much did all this result in? Well, it actually resulted in $158.30, with a $2.47 service fee and a PayPal transfer of $153.83. However, that's actually not all of it, because in those earnings are also 7 active subscribers who have opted to have the live subscription at $2.99, which is the lowest price that a creator can set, resulting in $25.66, which is part of the $155 that was paid out. Now, when we run the math on this, and we'll subtract the live subscriptions where you actually pay the creator directly, for which I want to say thank you. I appreciate you. It does not go unnoticed because every dollar helps. We are all in the same boat here. When we subtract the live subscriptions from that which has been paid out in total, and then we divide that by the videos released, 53, we're coming out at about $2 a video, give or take. Now, if we factor in the hours that it takes to put some together, some took an hour, others took 4 or 5 hours to put together, then we are talking about an ROI that is not worthy the production that goes into this. So why do it in the first place? Because I feel that I have a responsibility. Perhaps sometimes I can make you think. Other times, maybe it's just entertaining. And I'm sure there is a good number of people who just think that this dude is full of shit. And we are somewhere in between of this. And that's perfectly fine. This is the life of the creator who never expected to be a creator. In any way, those were the last 28 days. As always, thank you so much for being here. And perhaps as a final touch, what's really interesting is a couple of days ago, I released a video regarding the He Gets Us campaign. If you scroll back a couple of videos, you can watch that. I released it here on TikTok, but I also released it on Instagram. And the evidence in terms of numbers is pretty clear. Whereas here we have an audience, we have a crew of 64,000 on Instagram. I have about 1,500 and some change. And the play count on both apps is almost identical, which gets to say that the decline in the key metrics is not the fault of the audience. It is the fault of TikTok refusing to serve content from the creators to their followers. We've known this to be a problem all along, and TikTok is not going to change that because they are firmly in control. This being said, I'm going to update this again when the next payout came through. I hope that other creators will follow suit and also are transparent about their numbers, because your time, the viewing time that you spend with us, contributes to those numbers. And with that, I believe that you have, at least to some degree, you deserve to know what those numbers are. So again, thank you so much for being here. We'll do it again in 28 days. Does anybody have the over-under as to whether the career criminal is actually going to pay what he owes at this point? First, the 90-some million in the E. Jean Carroll defamation suit. Now the 364 million in the New York civil case. And of course, his attorney calls this manifested injustice because he is being wronged and it's a witch hunt. Yet somehow the career criminal is still allowed to remain on the ballot and run for president. There is something so indescribably sideways with this country. There aren't really adequate words to describe just how fucked up we really are that we still allow this to happen. Yet worse, that this career criminal has supporters left. What is functionally, cognitively, and emotionally wrong with people who still support this amoeba, this offensive piece of genetic human waste? I honestly, of course, don't have the answers. I just hope that the courts are going to decide to strip him of any form of belonging that he has ever had to his name. Donate it, sell it, make the people whole, and throw him in prison, and then just throw the key away. Let this guy rot in hell. It seems that just until recently, most Americans were merely divided along some form of party line. Democrats versus Republicans, identified with their individual directions, mostly expressed through soft cotton ball kinds of arguments, while still recognizing the humanity in each other.
Shut up!
However, it seems that we have lost that sense of unity. A pluribus unum is merely a catchphrase these days. Since 2015, courtesy of Trump, the public rhetoric has become increasingly vile.
Where I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and I wouldn't lose any voters, okay?
And purpose-driven towards creating the largest divide possible. And nothing could be ideologically more opposed than freedom for all and fascism, which favors the select few. When we zoom out far enough, though, it's not surprising to recognize that racial authoritarianism has been firmly implanted in the social fabric of the United States since its foundation. And then when we add religiocentrism, we get a potent mix of fascism. While Trump's rhetoric emphasized the contemporary nature.
Oh, shut up, silly woman, said the reptile with a grin. You knew damn well I was a snake before you took me in.
A poem suggesting that immigrants were snakes.
This is flirting with fascism in the open, in broad daylight now. Fest, that's an interesting word. It comes right out of one of the most vile Nazi propaganda films of all time, The Eternal Jew. And that language of infestation and the image of vermin and rats specifically comes from a very specific place. And we need to be on guard for that. If you listen to the rhetoric from the president, you would think that every person of color is somehow a gang member or ready to rape and to kill and to plunder.
They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists.
And that's simply not the case. But it's good politically, however. It's very useful for autocrats to demonize and project all these social ills upon the other.
They're people. These are animals. What was the name? Animals.
This is the same kind of language that the Nazis used to dehumanize and scapegoat social ills onto minority groups.
The parasite nation of Judah is responsible for a large part of international crime.
Scapegoating, it's a very interesting word, right? It comes from the biblical era, when the priest or the rabbi would confess the sins of a village and whisper them into the ears of a goat and literally drive the goat into the desert, and voila, you're cleansed of your sins. The village is cleansed, right?
All this really goes back by about 50 years.
I'm sick and tired of hearing about all of the radicals and the perverts and the liberals and the leftists and the communists coming out of the closet. It's time for God's people to come out of the closet, out of the churches, and change America.
Our form of government came directly from the Bible.
When two people in a family become absolutely legally equal, there is no head, both become independent of each other, and love is destroyed.
I agree with capital punishment, and I believe that homosexuality is one of those that could be coupled with murder and other sins. Who would be executing the homosexual?
The answers to the world's problems can be found in the Word of God.
There is a religious war going on in this country. It is a cultural war, as critical to the kind of nation we shall be as the Cold War itself, but this war is for the soul of America.
I was struck by the fact that the other party took words to put together their platform, but left out three simple letters, G-O-D.
We want to battle in the fight to save the lives of unborn babies.
Because most women do not wish to be liberated from their essential natures as women.
Americans try to raise their children to understand right and wrong, only to be told that every so-called lifestyle alternative is morally equivalent. That is wrong.
You see the pink triangles that they wear, a lot of these AIDS carriers, and they say that the reason they wear these pink triangles is because the homosexuals were forced to wear them in the Nazi death camps. The reality is the Nazi movement, the New World Order of its day, was put on the map by militant homosexuals. We are facing a new type of Gestapo.
On behalf of family values, we've taken on Hollywood and the media elite, and we will not back down.
Bushman man, a litmus test for the Supreme Court, homosexual rights, discrimination against religious schools, women in combat units. That's change, all right. But that's not the kind of change America needs. It's not the kind of change America wants. And it's not the kind of change we can abide in a nation we still call God's country.
It is no slogan that America remains the most resolutely religious nation on God's great earth.
So where does all this leave us? Well, we can either fall victim to the appeal of fascism, or we, the people, can come together and embrace our differences without wanting to cause harm to each other. The social evolution is our decision. If we choose an error, though, there won't be any allied forces to save us. That's the harsh reality. If we manage to come together, though, and embrace the differences that make for a balanced society, we may have a chance to escape the Americanized version of fascism, which presently is well in the making. Most of the world's leaders have condemned Russia and its influence upon Navalny, particularly the untimely death of Navalny. Some have even said what, in my opinion, is more correct, that it was blatant murder. Who was absent from the conversation? It was Trump. However, supposedly he posted on Truth Social, finally saying something about it, and that comment made it over to X. And since I do not have a Truth Social account, I can't really say whether or not this comment, as now shown, is actually accurate. If it is accurate, it is typical Trump. He reflects upon the actual subject matter for the first sentence and then immediately moves the goalpost to where it doesn't even remotely belong. Whatever Russia has on Trump must be of such significance that he can't speak out, because something would come to light that would be likely of such significance that he would perhaps even negatively impact his own supporters, who are presently paying $400 for sneakers. So that he shuts up and moves the goalpost is, again, typical Trump, and of course to be expected, but again, a clear sign and validation that the criminal-in-chief cannot possibly return to the White House.